Now guys, you'll know if you follow this channel, this is not normally what I do. I don't normally do reaction videos. Normally you'll see me outside of St James's Park speaking to away and home fans. I can't believe what I've just watched though. I'm absolutely furious. I'm probably still shaking from that. It's literally just happened 5 minutes ago. It seemed like, against all odds, that we were going to beat PSG for a historic win. It seemed like going into this game that there was a good chance that we were going to get knocked out of the Champions League in the group stages. We were going into the match with non-bench, if we're being realistic. We had 3 keepers. We had the rest of them were all teenagers against a fully fit PSG side who are going into the game full of confidence, loads of wins the last couple of games. It seemed on paper we were there for the picking. As soon as it got to the 60th minute, in my opinion, going into the game, that was when it was going to start coming apart for Newcastle if we weren't 1, 2, 3 goals up by then, because we literally had no bench. The high intensity that Eddie Howe plays as well was going to play right into PSG's hands for me. I got it completely wrong. All of the players absolutely fantastic. Even into the 95th minute, there was no real fatigue or whatever. A little bit of time wasting by Nick Pope, which is what obviously anyone is going to have to do for that. Beyond frustrating. Was it a penalty first of all? So I've literally only seen it live, haven't had time for the post-match analysis, so this is literally just going to be how I've seen it. Chest on the arm. The referee for me had a fantastic game. In my opinion, that was one of the best refereeing performances that I've seen in years. He didn't take any stick from the players. He made up his own mind throughout the game. Used a lot of common sense as well for the other VAR calls throughout the match. But for me, that was ridiculously soft, absolutely ridiculously soft. It's cost Newcastle what would have been a historic win. It would have been 6 points against PSG. I mean, who would have thought 2 years ago that that would be a phrase coming out of a Newcastle supporter's mouth? Before I go too much on the negatives, I want to focus a little bit on some of the positives, and there was an awful lot to choose from. Firstly, I'd not really criticised Eddie Howe's transfers in the summer, but I was questioning a little bit because it seemed like there was a lot of future planning rather than planning for right now with what I thought would be a lot of Champions League money. The signings, however, that he's made, especially Livramento, has impressed me every single time I've seen him. He's picked up a couple of man of the match performances in the Cup. Tonight again, absolutely phenomenal. He's worked. At the time, someone who couldn't necessarily get into the Southampton first team, he's worked as Eddie Howe magic and he's turned him into absolutely a fantastic player. Lewis Miley, if you'd have dressed him up in a morph suit, you would have thought he was an experienced player who played years and years in the Premier League. This was one of his first starts for Newcastle. How on earth he wasn't so overwhelmed playing against them superstars is absolutely beyond me. He can't even go out and celebrate and have a beer after Newcastle have a win, and yet he's in there against one of the world's best players in Mbappe. Absolutely fantastic. Eddie Howe, for me, I know when people say you're a world-class manager, the point of trophies and this, that and the other. Other than trophies, for me, Eddie Howe is a world-class manager. He seems to have the Midas touch. Everything he touches seems to be absolute gold dust with the players. He's developed the likes of, obviously, Joelinton and all the rest of them that everyone knows that they've improved on. A lot of people from outside of the club think Newcastle spent a little bit of a fortune and that's how they're in the position that they are now. It's a little bit of truth in that, but it's a lot of truth in the fact that he's developed everyone that he's touched, from Fabian Shaw, who, when he was playing under Steve Bruce, even came out during an interview and said that he was lacking for confidence. He's turned him into an absolute world beater. Lascelles has come on. He couldn't even get into the team before. Everyone thought his Newcastle career was up. He's turned him into an absolute top class player as well. Trippier didn't have to do anything with. He was already the complete player. But all across the pitch, if you look at Murphy, if you look at Almiron, if you look at anyone that he touches, he's improved massively. For me, trophies will come for Eddie Howe, based on what I've seen so far in the Champions League as well. As soon as he gets a few more players in 1, 2, 3 years, we'll be competing almost on all fronts. But today, it's an absolute bitter sweet pill to take here. There's a couple of questions I want to throw out, and I want to see what the comments are as well. So one of the first questions is it a penalty in your book as well? It's very, very harsh. Obviously, like I say, I haven't seen the post-match to kind of digest what the general feeling is, but for me, very harsh. I didn't think he was going to give it. When I'd seen it on VAR, I still thought he wasn't going to give it. The ball kind of hit his chest and then come up. It wasn't like he could put his hand in the way of it. It was totally unintentional, and like I say, a bit of common sense that I thought was used all throughout the match. I was given the referee credit all throughout the match as well, and he's let us down at the last little bit. I thought he really should have just kept his head and given that. Obviously gets swamped every single time by the desperate PSG players to try to get some sort of handball. We've seen it go on all throughout the match as well. The next question is, who would you give man of the match to for that? Now for me it's Nick Pope. I mean, you could give it to Livramento, you could give it to Miley just purely because he's 17 and fitted in, you know, like a hand to a glove. He's played absolutely fantastic. You give it to Joelinton, you could give it to Bruno. Isaac obviously got the goal. You could give it to a ton of players, but for me, Nick Pope was instrumental in keeping that score down. It could have been 2-3 for PSG on the balance of it. Pulled off some absolutely fantastic saves. Absolutely amazing player. For me, man of the match. Now the negatives. So for me, we've been drained during that game. A full high-intensity game that was intense from minute 1 all the way through to 98 minutes. Where they got 98 minutes from, I don't know, considering there was hardly any injuries or anything like that. But that high-intensity game for that amount of time, considering the run of games that we've got, we're in December now, we're already strapped on players as well. It's going to absolutely crucify we're going at this game. Yes, we're going to have a lot of confidence because you'd imagine Eddie Howe would pick out the fact that we nearly had PSG. We basically had 3 points if it wasn't for that decision right at the end, at the death. So the positive is a lot of confidence from all of the players. You've stood up against one of the best teams in the world again and played them off the park almost, nearly deserved to win. But now it's a short turnaround time against Manchester United, and then we play again this Saturday, then we play again on Thursday, then Sunday, then Wednesday, then Saturday. With this depleted squad, especially playing the high intensity, it's going to be a big ask for these players as well. You would imagine, touch wood, it won't happen, but you'd imagine more injuries are going to happen purely because of the intensity of games that we play, plus the now amount of games that we play. It's a very big concern for me. What was your thoughts on the game as well? I want to know what your thoughts were on the full game. Obviously PSG had a hell of a lot of chances as well. Newcastle had a couple. Isaac could have scored early doors as well. What was your thoughts? How would you analyse that game as well? And how do you see now the group of death ending as well? It seems like it could go almost any way for that 2nd, 3rd and 4th place. How are we going to do in the next game? It's obviously going to be absolutely crucial for where we finish. Is it going to be the end of the world if we qualify for the Europa League? Now, obviously, we've got almost no chance of winning the Champions League, but every single Geordie wants that trophy, wants that first bit of silverware. We do have a small chance of winning that Europa League. We'll get down there. Hopefully some injuries will come back. We've seen some of the teams in there are not absolute world beaters. That could be a realistic target that Newcastle could target this season. Now, I know a lot of Newcastle fans are obviously going to have the full focus on Champions League and stuff like that. I fully get it. It's a big ego thing being in the Champions League. It's fantastic. It turns all the naysayers away. Newcastle being a Champions League club. But would you rather progress a couple of rounds in the Champions League, or would you rather progress and possibly get in quarterfinals, semi-final, finals, or even win the Europa, a European bit of silverware as well? Let us know what your thoughts are, because obviously it's going to be very divisive, that, and there's going to be people on both sides of the fence. And just before I end with this video as well, if you don't follow the channel already, like, follow, subscribe. We are just a local channel, so every single like, follow and subscribe is a massive help to us. You'll see as well, if you do subscribe, the last video that we put out was a Newcastle charity video that we're doing. So we've got a Christmas campaign running as well. It's for the homeless here in Newcastle and the North East. It's Christmas meal appeal. It goes every single year with any offers. We'll put the link below for that. We basically put an appeal out to try to make sure nobody in Newcastle and the North East goes hungry this Christmas as well. Like I say, all the details will be below. The last video that we put out was the charity single. Every single penny from the views from that charity single is going to go straight to the cause as well. So if you can share that out, that would be a massive help as well. Make sure, like I say, no one goes hungry, especially at Christmas here as well. All the details are below as well, so you'll be able to check that out. And we'll see you in the next one.